I had been looking forward to this Valentine's Day for months. It was our first anniversary and I wanted to make it special. I had booked a room at a cozy bed and breakfast in the countryside, away from the city noises and stress. I had packed a picnic basket with wine, cheese, and chocolate. I had bought a necklace with a heart pendant for my girlfriend, Amy. I had everything ready for a perfect romantic getaway. But things went horribly wrong. We were driving to the bed and breakfast, listening to our favorite songs, when suddenly a storm hit. It was raining heavily and the wind was howling. The road was slippery and dark. I tried to drive carefully, but I couldn't see much ahead. That's when I saw the deer. It was standing in the middle of the road, staring at us with wide eyes. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. I hit the deer and the car spun out of control. We skidded off the road and crashed into a ditch. I felt a jolt of pain in my head and chest. I looked around and saw that the car was badly damaged. The windshield was cracked, the hood was bent, and the airbags were deployed. I saw blood on the steering wheel and the seats. I turned to Amy and felt a surge of panic. She was unconscious and her face was pale and bloody. She had a nasty cut on her cheek and her head was resting on the window. I reached for her hand and felt for a pulse. It was weak, but it was there. Amy! Amy! Can you hear me? Wake up, please! I shouted, shaking her gently. I heard a groan from her. She opened her eyes and looked at me. She seemed confused and scared. Where are we? What happened? She asked. We had an accident. We hit a deer and went off the road. Are you okay? Do you feel any pain? I asked. She touched her cheek and winced. I think I'm okay, just a little sore. What about you? Are you hurt? She asked. I felt a sharp pain in my ribs and head, but I ignored it. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. We need to get out of here. We need to find help, I said. I tried to open the door, but it was stuck. I kicked it hard and it finally opened. I got out of the car and helped Amy out. She leaned on me and we walked to the road. We looked for the deer, but it was gone. It must have run away or dragged away by something. We looked for other cars, but there were none. We were alone in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of a storm. We had no cell phone signal, no GPS, no map. We had no idea where we were or how far we were from the bed and breakfast. We had no choice but to walk and hope to find a house, a store, or anything. We walked for what seemed like hours, but we saw nothing. The rain was pouring and the wind was blowing. We were soaked, cold, and hungry. We were tired, scared, and hopeless. We were about to give up when we saw a light. It was a faint, yellow light coming from a window. It was a house, a small wooden house hidden behind some trees. It looked old and abandoned, but it was better than nothing. We ran towards the house hoping to find shelter, warmth, and maybe someone who could help us. We knocked on the door, but there was no answer. We tried the knob, and it turned. The door was unlocked. We entered the house and closed the door behind us. We were greeted by a musty smell and a dusty sight. The house was dark and dirty, full of cobwebs and junk. It looked like no one had lived there for years, but there was a fire burning in the fireplace and a candle lit on the table. There was also a note written in a shaky handwriting. It read, "Welcome to my house. Make yourselves comfortable. I'll be back soon. Don't go anywhere. I have a surprise for you. Happy Valentine's Day." We looked at each other and felt a chill down our spines. Who wrote this note? Who lived here? What kind of surprise did they have for us? We felt a sudden fear and a sense of danger. We realized that we had made a terrible mistake. We had walked into a trap. We turned to the door and tried to open it, but it was locked. We were trapped. We heard a loud laugh from outside. It was a man's voice, a deep and raspy voice. It sounded familiar, but we couldn't place it. "Hello, my dear guests. I'm so glad you're here. I've been waiting for you for a long time. You don't know me, but I know you. I know everything about you. I know your names, your addresses, your jobs, your hobbies, your secrets. I know what you did and what you deserve. You deserve to die, and I'm going to kill you. Slowly, painfully, and creatively. I have a lot of fun things planned for you. You'll see. You'll see soon enough. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm your worst nightmare. I'm your Valentine's Day killer. We guessed. We recognized the voice. We recognized the name. It was him. It was the man who had been terrorizing the city for the last year. The man who had killed dozens of couples on Valentine's Day in gruesome and sadistic ways. The man who had left behind clues and riddles, taunting the police and the media. The man who had never been caught, never been identified, never been stopped. It was the Valentine's Day killer, and we were his next victims. We screamed, we cried, we begged, we prayed, but it was no use. He had us. He had planned this. He had followed us, watched us, waited for us. He had caused the accident, lured us to the house, locked us in. He had everything ready for us. He had a surprise for us. A deadly surprise. He was outside, laughing and playing with us. He was inside, watching and listening to us. He was everywhere and nowhere. He was a ghost, a monster, a demon. He was the Valentine's Day killer, and we were doomed, or so we thought. But we were wrong. We weren't doomed. We weren't helpless. We weren't alone. We had each other. We had love. We had hope. We decided to fight back. We decided to survive. We decided to live. We looked around the house and found some weapons. We found a kitchen knife, a fireplace poker, a baseball bat. We armed ourselves and prepared for battle. We waited for him to come in. We waited for him to attack. We waited for him to show himself. We waited for our chance, and it came. He came in through the back door. He was wearing a mask, a black hood, and a red cloak. He was holding a chainsaw, a machete, and a gun. He looked like a horror movie villain, a nightmare come true. He saw us and smiled. He raised his weapons and spoke. "Hello, dear guest. I'm back. Did you miss me? Are you ready for your surprise? Are you ready to die?" We said nothing. We just stared at him with eager and defiance. He laughed and moved towards us. He was confident, cocky, careless. He was stupid. He didn't see the trap. He didn't see the wire. He didn't see the bucket. He stepped on the wire and triggered the trap. He pulled the bucket and spilled the contents. He spilled the gasoline. Spilled the gasoline and ignited the fire. He ignited the fire and set himself on fire. He set himself on fire and screamed. Screamed and dropped his weapons. He dropped his weapons and ran. He ran and tripped. He tripped and fell. He fell and died. He died and we lived. We lived and we cheered. We cheered and we hugged. We hugged and we kissed. We kissed and we smiled. We smiled and we thanked God. We thanked God and we celebrated. We celebrated and we loved. We loved and we lived. We lived and we had a happy ending.
I never liked Valentine's Day. It always reminded me of how lonely I was, how I had no one to share my life with. But this year I decided to do something different. I signed up for a dating app, hoping to find someone who would make me feel special. I matched with a guy named Jake who seemed nice and charming. He had a handsome face and friendly smile, and a good sense of humor. He asked me out for a coffee date and I agreed. I was nervous, but also excited. Maybe this was the start of something new. We met at a cozy cafe near my apartment. He was waiting for me at the table, holding a red rose. He stood up and hugged me, then handed me the flower. "Happy Valentine's Day," he said. It looked beautiful. I blushed and thanked him. He was even more attractive in person with his dark hair, blue eyes, and muscular build. He led me to the table and we sat down. He ordered 2 lattes and a slice of chocolate cake. We started chatting, and I found out that he was a lawyer, a fan of horror movies, and a dog lover. It seemed perfect. We had a lot in common and the conversation flowed easily. He made me laugh, complimented me, and he listened to me. It was everything I ever wanted in a partner. I felt a connection with him, a spark. I was falling for him. He leaned in and kissed me softly. I kissed him back, feeling a surge of emotion. He smiled and whispered in my ear, "Do you want to come back to my place?" I hesitated for a moment, then nodded. I wanted to be with him, to spend more time with him, to see where this would go. He paid for the bill and took my hand. He led me to his car, a black SUV. He opened the door for me and helped me in. He got into the driver's seat and started the engine. He drove away from the cafe, heading to his apartment. He put on some music, a romantic playlist. He sang along the songs and I joined him. He held my hand and squeezed it gently. He looked at me with a loving gaze. He said, "You're amazing. You know that?" I smiled and said, "So are you." He kissed my hand and said, "I'm so glad I met you. You're the best thing that ever happened to me." I felt the same way. He was the best thing that ever happened to me. We arrived at his apartment, a modern building in a nice neighborhood. He parked the car and got out. He opened the door for me and helped me out. He took my hand and led me to the elevator. He pressed the button for the 10th floor. He wrapped his arm around me and pulled me close. He kissed me again, more passionately. I kissed him back, feeling a wave of desire. The elevator reached the 10th floor. The doors opened. He walked me to his door, number 103. He unlocked it and opened it. He invited me in. I stepped inside and he followed me, closed the door behind him, and locked it. He turned on the lights and I looked around. His apartment was spacious and stylish, with a large living room, a kitchen, a bedroom, and a bathroom. It was decorated with paintings, plants, and books. It looked cozy and comfortable. He took off his coat and hung it on a rack. I took my coat and hung it next to his. He kissed me on the neck and said, "Make yourself at home. I'll be right back." He walked to the bedroom and disappeared inside. I heard him rummaging through something. I wondered what he was doing. I decided to explore his apartment a bit. I walked to the living room and looked at the paintings. They were abstract and colorful, with shapes and patterns. They looked nice. I walked to the kitchen and looked at the fridge. It was covered with magnets and photos. I looked at the photos. They were of him and his friends, his family, and his dog. They looked happy. I walked to the bookshelf and looked at the books. They were mostly novels, thrillers, and mysteries. I recognized some of the titles and authors. They were some of my favorites. I walked to the bathroom and looked at the mirror. I saw myself, a young woman with brown hair, green eyes, and a cute dress. I smiled and fixed my hair. I looked good. I walked back to the living room and sat on the couch. I waited for him to come back. I wondered what he had planned for us. I hoped it would be something romantic, something special. I heard him coming back. He walked out of the bedroom holding something behind his back. He smiled and said, "I have a surprise for you." He walked towards me and stopped in front of me. He revealed what he was holding. It was a knife, a large, sharp, bloody knife. He said, "Happy Valentine's Day." He stabbed me in the chest. I screamed. He stabbed me again. I gasped. He stabbed me again. I choked. He stabbed me again. I died. He said, "You're not the first and you won't be the last. I love Valentine's Day. It's the perfect day to find new victims. You were so easy to lure, so naive, so trusting. You thought I was your soulmate, but I was your nightmare. You thought this was a date, but it was a trap. You thought this was a story, but it was a reality." He dropped the knife and picked up his phone. He opened the dating app and swiped right on a new match. He said, "Hello, beautiful. Do you want to go out with me?" He smiled and waited for a reply.
It was supposed to be a romantic Valentine's Day. I had planned everything: a candlelit dinner at a fancy restaurant, a bouquet of roses, a box of chocolates, and a surprise gift. I wanted to make my girlfriend Lisa feel special and loved, but things went horribly wrong. We were driving to the restaurant, chatting and laughing, when suddenly a loud bang startled us. I looked at the rear view mirror and saw a black SUV behind us. It had rammed into our car, causing us to swerve and lose control. I tried to steer back to the road, but it was too late. We crashed into a tree and everything went black. I woke up to the sound of sirens and flashing lights. I felt a sharp pain in my chest and head. I looked around and saw that our car was totaled. The windshield was shattered, the airbags were deployed, and the doors were dented. I saw blood on the seats and the dashboard. I turned to Lisa and felt a surge of panic. She was unconscious and her face was covered in cuts and bruises. She had a deep gash on her forehead and blood was dripping from it. I reached for her hand and squeezed it, hoping for a response, but she didn't move or make any sound. "Lisa! Lisa! Can you hear me? Wake up, please!" I shouted, tears streaming down my face. I heard someone knock on the window. I looked up and saw a police officer. He had a concerned expression on his face. "Sir, are you okay? Can you open the door?" he asked. I tried to push the door, but it was jammed. I shook my head and pointed at Lisa. "She hurt. She needs help. Please, get her out of here," I begged. The officer nodded and called for backup. He then used a crowbar to pry open the door. He reached in and unbuckled my seatbelt. He gently pulled me out of the car and laid me on a stretcher. He checked my pulse and my wounds. "You're lucky to be alive, sir. You have some broken ribs and a concussion, but you'll be fine. Don't worry, we'll take care of your girlfriend. She's still breathing, but she's in critical condition. We need to get her to the hospital as soon as possible," he said. He signaled to the paramedic, who rushed to the car. They carefully extracted Lisa from the wreckage and put her on another stretcher. They hooked her up to an IV and a monitor. They loaded her into an ambulance and drove away, sirens blaring. I wanted to go with her, but the officer stopped me. "Sir, you need to stay here. We have some questions for you. Do you know who did this to you?" he said. I shook my head. I had no idea who the SUV driver was or why he attacked us. It seemed like a random act of violence or a senseless tragedy. The officer frowned and showed me a photo. It was a mugshot of a man with a scarred face and a sinister grin. He had a tattoo of a snake on his neck. "Do you recognize this man?" he said. I gasped. I didn't recognize him. He was the man who had killed my brother 2 years ago. His name was Jake, and he was a drug dealer and a murderer. He had shot my brother Matt in a botched robbery. Matt had been a cashier at a convenience store, and Jake had tried to rob him. Matt had resisted, and Jake had shot him in the chest. He had escaped with the money, leaving Matt to die. I had testified against Jake in court, and he had been sentenced to life in prison. But somehow, he had escaped, and now he had come back for revenge. He had followed us, waited for the right moment, and rammed into our car. He had tried to kill us just like he had killed Matt. He had ruined our Valentine's Day. He had ruined our lives. I felt a surge of anger and hatred. I wanted to kill him. I wanted to make him pay. "Where is he? Where is that bastard?" I yelled. The officer sighed and shook his head. "I'm sorry, sir. He got away. He ditched the SUV and ran into the woods. We're looking for him, but he's armed and dangerous. He could be anywhere by now," he said. I felt a wave of despair and hopelessness. Jake had escaped again. He had hurt us, and he had gotten away with it. He was still out there somewhere plotting his next move. I felt like giving up. I felt like I had nothing left to live. But then I thought of Lisa. I thought of her smile, her laugh, her voice. I thought of how much I loved her and how much she loved me. I thought of how we had met, how we had fallen in love, how we had planned our future together. I thought of how she was fighting for her life in the hospital. I thought of how she needed me more than ever. I realized that I couldn't give up. I had to stay strong. I had to survive. I had to be with her. I looked at the officer and nodded. Okay, I'll answer your questions, but please let me know how she's doing. She's all I've left, I said. The officer nodded and smiled. Of course, sir. We'll keep you updated. And don't worry, we'll find Jake. We'll bring him to justice. We won't let him hurt anyone else. He led me to the police car and drove me to the station. He asked me about Jake, about the crash, about everything. I told him everything I knew, everything I remembered. I hope that it would help. I hope that it would make a difference. I hope that Lisa would be okay. I hope that we would have a happy ending.